Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We do have amazing attendance today, and we are hitting up against the limitations of our webinar platform. So I am going to go ahead and ask you, we are recording the webinar today, and we will be sending out the link to the webinar later this afternoon. So if you would like to watch this later or catch it on your own time, if you could go ahead and drop off so that we can allow space for everyone to join, that would be great. We are asking for a couple of participants to volunteer to drop off, and we will be sending the link out to everyone at the end of the webinar, probably a little bit later this afternoon. So now we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Amy Green, and I will be your host for today's 22-minute webinar, Model Like a Maniac. Thank you for joining us, and a couple of notes before we begin. Here is the webinar platform that you see in front of you, and I'd like to just walk you through it a little bit. We've placed everyone on mute to avoid background noise and interference for the remainder of the webinar. If you do have questions that come up throughout the webinar, please enter them in the text-based chat window on the left-hand side of your screen. This panel can be hidden using the button on the upper left corner or by entering into full screen mode using the full screen button on the upper right-hand side. Throughout the webinar, we will be asking a few polling questions to keep this presentation interactive. So please select from the multiple choice answers in the middle of your screen as quickly as possible. We will be responding to questions as they come up using the chat window. So we will be having an in-depth Q&A session at the end of the live demonstration with our experts. So stick around to get your questions answered live. Now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Mark Schneider. Mark is a true model like a maniac. He has been running the Model Mania contest at SolidWorks World for 14 years and has been with SolidWorks for 17. He's currently working as a technical marketing manager, and he's here to show you a number of tips, tricks, and best practices for part design that he's picked up from years of Model Mania. Welcome, Mark, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to start off today with a quick polling question just to get things started. We want to know, have you ever participated in a solid modeling contest? Yes, you've participated in Model Mania before. Yes, another modeling contest. Or no, no modeling contest. We'll give people a few minutes to answer. But Mark, what do you expect from this upcoming year's Model Mania contest at SolidWorks World?
I expect to have, since we're doing this webinar, Amy, I expect to have a lot more contestants.
I think that'll be a great idea.
Yeah, we got, it looks like, do you share this information, Amy, the poll information that the audience sees that?
Yep.
It looks like we have some that, a small number that have done it before and others who have not participated. But in reality, the goal of the whole contest is, for me anyway, I like to make sure that everybody's very productive with the software. That means that they can get their parts modeled quickly and easily and efficiently. And that's kind of a big, it's important for me to get that information out there and share that information with people so that they can better use SolidWorks.
Great, thanks. Mark, why don't you kick it off? 14 years of Model Mania.
Okay, so for those who aren't familiar with Model Mania, it is a contest that we've held at SolidWorks World for the last 14 years, and you can see some of the models that we've done in the past. We give you a drawing. You sit down with a drawing. We ask you to model the part. No, you don't have to create drawings, just model the part. It is a timed event, so you only get 20 minutes to model it, and then we ask you to make some changes and run a quick little simulation on it that we prescribe in the drawings for you. You can see some of the models that we've done in the past. Nothing that's going to take hours or anything. We only give you 20 minutes. But, most of these, our contestants get done, well within the time frame, and then we judge based on time, whoever's the fastest. So those are some of the previous models. So what does it take to participate in the event? These are just some of the skills that I think are important. Strong basic modeling skills. We don't get into the very complex stuff and surfacing, real deep surfacing and swoopy parts and stuff like that. Fairly easy modeling concepts, but we really want to make sure that you're able to capture your design intent because we ask you to make a change, and we don't give you the change information before you sit down. If you're designing stuff in the real world and you're halfway done, your boss comes to you and says you need to make a change, you never know what that change is going to be. You just have to deal with it. So the better you are at dealing with that change, and the more robust your design is, your model is actually going to deal with the change. Strong sketching capabilities. I mean, Sketch is a foundation of the solid model. To have strong sketching capabilities is very good, a very good skill to have. Deep knowledge of basic commands. So the deeper you know the basic commands, and we'll get into some of this as we go through some of the demos and actually click through a couple of the parts that we've done in the past. That's very important. Frankly, if you are able to read a drawing quickly, that is a big help. You know, some people have been looking at drawings forever, can quickly read a drawing and figure out where they want to start and get going. That always helps a lot. Feature order is important. Everybody should be aware of that and how it affects your model, so that is something that always comes into play. And the obscure commands, real hard to use commands, those we're not doing any of that stuff. Like I said in the very first bullet there, strong basic modeling skills is really what is needed. So this is our first drawing. Now, Amy asked earlier in the presentation that we are recording this, and we will this afternoon we'll send out a link to the recording. Because of the limitations of the technology that we're using, we're asking for some volunteers. You'll have the recording, everything that's from the beginning to the end of this thing. So if we can ask for some volunteers to drop off of the call, you'll get a link, and then you can watch it at your leisure. Watch it whenever you want. You'll just have a link that you can do that. If we don't get enough volunteers, we'll have to start kicking people off. I do apologize ahead of time, but that's the way it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Thanks to those who dropped off. Hopefully we'll get enough people to do that. Appreciate it. And again, you'll get a link, and you'll be able to watch the video at your own leisure. Okay. I assume we're good to go. It looks like we're good to go. Okay. So this is Model Mania 2002, one of my favorites, a simple model. So you can see that there's a lot of symmetry in this model. What we have is a boss here, and then another, a bore that goes through here, and another hole that goes through vertically, and those are 100 millimeters apart. You can see this part has some draft on it, and that's prescribed here. So we'll talk about the different methodologies and techniques that you can use for the draft, and then some basic filleting and stuff, and we'll walk through that. But you can see what is important here is we have a 70 millimeter dimension here and a 15 millimeter dimension here, and those two holes are 90 degrees to each other. The axes of those two holes are 90 degrees to each other. What also is important is that we have 7 millimeters of offset here, 7 millimeters of offset here as well. So we don't have an overall length. That's not important. What's important is center of the hole. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll walk you through one of the ways that you can do this. I think everybody understands that you can build a solid model, this model for instance, in many different ways and methodologies. I think that this is one of the more efficient, and you can judge that yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a sketch. And I'm actually going to use a circle here, so just go ahead and create a circle, and that's going to be 70 millimeters in diameter. I want to use the offset command, and we'll just offset this guy 7 millimeters to the outside. That looks good. And then maybe we'll start with a line here and draw from here out to there, up. And then as I sketch, notice as I move my mouse over that edge, I'm going to pick up the tangency. So I don't have to add that constraint later. I want to do that as I'm sketching. I always like to do this and test my sketch and make sure I picked up the tangency in case I mispicked. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a circle. Now I realize that we're not going to create this circle, this hole in this particular view, but I'm just going to put it in there for reference. I like to kind of build a layout of what I have. That's going to be 15. This is going to be 15 degrees here, and then we're going to have a 7 millimeter offset. So I'm going to create a dimension here, hold down the shift key, and what that does is it allows me to create that minimum dimension of, in this case, 7. And then obviously the important one, it was 100. So the nice thing about creating it this way is I have a good layout. I have a lot of information. It's all captured in one sketch. I don't have to go hunting around into different features to find out which feature or sketch controls which particular dimension I don't want to change. I have the majority of my information captured right here in this first sketch. So let's go ahead and extrude. One of my favorite tools is contours. I'm not sure if everybody uses these. I'm a big fan of using contours. It saves me from having to come in here and do a whole bunch of trim work. I don't particularly want to do extra work, so I'm not going to. So I'm just going to choose these contours that I want to extrude. We'll just drag this out, and then we'll make that, say, 35, and that's good. So I talked about symmetry. I'm creating 1/4 of the model here, so I really don't have everything that I want. I'm going to go ahead and show this sketch because this sketch contains information that I want to be able to use in my next sketch. Basically, I'm going to have that hole that's cutting through here, and I'm going to reference it. I'm just going to kind of use that one. So it's on this bottom face here, we'll create a sketch, and let's rotate that a little bit there. So create a circle, and I'm just going to snap to that. So when my first sketch changes, the location of this circle is going to change as well. I'm going to create a point on this circle right there. So I hope everybody can see what I'm doing here. Created a point here, and then I'm going to make that point pierce the circle in the other sketch. If you don't understand that pierce command, pierce constraint, it's a pretty powerful little tool, and we have some very good information in the help on how to use it. I would encourage you. So right now, the size of that hole and the location of that hole is controlled with my original sketch there. So it saves me from having to re-add dimensions that I might get out of sync with each other. We'll create another circle, and I'm just going to snap to there, and then I'll create a line that's tangent on this one. Create a line tangent on this one. Let me just do that again. Not picking up my tangency. It's picked up the tangency like that, and you can see I can drag that out, and then I'm just going to snap it to that vertex there, and then I'll create another line and just close up my sketch. So what I'm creating here on this bottom sketch here is the information. This is the geometry that I want to use, but I want to cut away the outside. How do we do that? I'm just going to use this flip side to cut option in the extrude command. So flip side to cut, I use that a lot. That allows me to create kind of what I want. And not have to worry about drawing the information on the outside and then cutting it away. So using contours again, I'm going to say I want this, this, and this. That's what I want to keep because I'm flipping side to cut. I get a little arrow here that shows which direction I'm flipping, so you can see how that works. And I know I'm cutting away the outside there, and I want this to go through all. We'll go ahead and create that. So I cut away the outside of my model, and I just used the sketch that defines that to kind of control what I wanted. We don't need to see this anymore. We'll hide it. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to do some things wrong just to kind of help everybody understand the way the tools work and what you might approach in when you're actually in there doing this type of work. So I'm going to mirror this over. It would be a pretty obvious idea. Let's choose this as our mirror plane, and then this feature here, and also the cut feature. And I'm going to mirror that over there. And you're going to say, whoa, what the heck happened here? It just mirrored it, but it got rid of the original. What did I do wrong? Well, remember, when I said flip side to cut on this cut here, what happens when I mirror it is we solve the features on the other side as well. So once it gets mirrored over, it cuts away everything on the outside, therefore cutting away the original information that we had. How do we fix it? Well, there's a couple ways. I could delete that feature out and go off and create a mirror by mirroring the body, and we'll do that later. I'll show you how that works. But another tool that's very important is the geometry pattern. So when I choose geometry pattern, what it does is it only mirrors the geometry over and doesn't solve the features. So if you see something like that pop up, be aware of that tool. It's a great little tool to help you kind of be more productive. So that looks pretty good. So I got the information that I have. If I switch back over to my drawing here, you're going to see that we have some drafts. So draft on the outside and draft on the inside. The draft on the outside comes from this neutral plane here, and then we'll just draft everything up 7. The draft on this rib here, see, we need to establish this edge and this edge. And that edge is up here as well. That edge is getting established by the draft. So this is at a different angle, and we got to add draft inside of there. So we'll show you how that works as we go through. First of all, let's add our basic draft here. So we'll add draft. Here's my neutral plane here. I'm going to flip the arrow for the direction of pull, and then the neutral plane is going to be, the faces of the draft are going to be this one, and I'm going to say a long tangent. Saves me a couple picks there. And we'll make that 7, and that's good. So that establishes those two top edges. Jump to a top view here. You can see that I've then established those two edges. Now, how do I create that pocket? That's got to be offset 7, offset 7, offset 7 there as well. Well, one of the things we can do is we can, I'm just going to create a plane that's up here. And the easiest way to create a plane is I just highlighted that one from the feature tree, hold down Control key, and drag this up. And when you do that, it invokes the plane creation tool. So it comes in here and creates a plane. I could stop right here because it doesn't really matter the depth of this plane. Or I could say I want that to be parallel to the top, and my second reference is going to be that one, and we'll accept that. So that's my plane that I've created, and I'm going to sketch on that. So sketching on that, I'm going to build some offset between these three entities here. So we use the offset tool 7. I'm going to pin this. A lot of our property managers have these little pins in there. It just keeps it visible as you use this command multiple times. 7 millimeters is fine. See the little arrow? Hopefully everybody can see that little arrow flipping back and forth. It saves you from having to hit the reverse button over here. Just move your mouse to either side, and it'll offset that for you. So I'm going to offset to the outside, and again offset that one to the inside. Then this guy right here, I want to just borrow this edge, so I'm going to convert that into sketch geometry. As I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan I'm not big on having to do a bunch of trim work. It's just extra work that I don't need to do. So what I'm going to do is we'll just go ahead and create our cut here. And I'm going to do this wrong because, this is something that you might run into in day-to-day work. I want to extrude that down. It's going to be 7 millimeters offset, and I'll switch over 7 millimeters offset. We'll switch to the drawing here in a second, but I want that to be offset from surface, right there, and I'll choose this face right here. Okay, and that's going to be 7 millimeter offset. Something like that. I get a nice preview what it's going to look like. I go ahead and cut that through. Well, I got a pocket here, or a cutout here, and I don't want that. I'm going to switch back to the drawing here real quick. If we look up here, you can see I have the 7 millimeter offset, but that's 7 millimeters offset from this central plane. It's also 7 millimeters offset from this because that's the same diameter on the outside. So how do I deal with that? Well, if I come back over here, I could model that 7 millimeters back in, maybe do a revolve. There's all kinds of ways that I could model that back in. That's one way. Another way to do it is to create a simple surface between this guy and this guy and offset that 7 and extrude up the surface. So we got to make sure that since I mentioned before feature order is important, I'll go back before that cut that I created and just use basic surfacing tool here, and this is going to be the offset surface. We'll make that 7. And I want to offset this guy and this guy. I get a preview, flip the direction, and we'll create that. So that creates that one surface right there that's offset 7. That's what I want to extrude up to. So we'll come back into our command, and not that guy. I want to go up to surface this time, not offset. And I'll just choose that surface that I created, and then you can see that creates that nicely. Let's hide this surface here. We don't need to use that anymore. So that creates that pocket in there exactly the way I want it. And we can hide this plane as well. Now we got to get that draft on there. Again, I'll do this wrong just to kind of show you some things that you may struggle with. Let's choose a neutral plane. Maybe you choose this one. And the faces to draft are going to be this guy, and this guy down here. 7 degrees is the correct number. Go ahead and create that. Well, if we take a look at that and cut a cross section here, you can see that's not right. That's not 7 degrees there. That's quite a bit more. And the reason is because of this angle. It's 7 degrees from this angled face. That was what I chose for my parting surface. That's not correct. If I change this and I say, well, maybe our neutral plane is this one down here. Check our direction. That looks good. Now I got this tapered thing here, and it started down there. It's not 7 millimeters between that point and that. It's 5 point whatever, and it's even less back there. So that's not quite right. So how do we deal with this? Let's go in and do it the right way. The right way is to use a parting line draft, because remember that the way the drawing was dimensioned, it said this 7 millimeter offset between these two edges needs to be maintained. We just draft straight down. So 7 degrees. Our parting lines are going to be this one. See this little arrow? It's very important to make sure you notice that. If I choose the other face, it's going to draft the other face. I want to make sure I'm drafting the proper face, so just watch your arrows. We'll grab those 3 guys right there. Our neutral plane our direction of pull, is still correct. So I still want to my direction of pull, I still want to be vertical, so that's good. We'll go ahead and create that, and now I have exactly what I want. Cut that cross section again. There's our 7 degrees between there, and if I would cut a cross section this way, you would see that, you know, there's my 7 degrees in each direction. Everything looks really good that way. So that's pretty quick and easy. Next, we got to add some fillets. Well, we could add fillets and select all these edges or faces and try to make sure we get them all. Another way to do that is to actually fillet a feature. So I'm going to take this cut that we just created, and I'm going to say fillet that at 3 millimeters. Excuse me. 3 millimeters, and you can see I get a nice preview. All the faces and edges that are associated with that feature then get filleted. So that's kind of a quick and easy way to grab a whole bunch of stuff. You know you want everything filleted with that feature. Choose that. You also notice that it's filleting the outside edges here, and you might say, well, why is that happening? Well, the reason that's happening is because this face is part of the cut. Remember when we cut that basically just merged those two faces, even though, you know, there might have been a line there, an edge there, but in this case here it's merged. That's why it thinks it's all part of it. So you accept that, and that looks good. Now this isn't necessary for Model Mania, but just maybe for making things a little bit easier to see, you can set the colors of your features like that, and it maybe helps you visualize a little bit better. If you look on the back side here, and I always say make sure you inspect your model to make sure that nothing is make sure everything is correct. This face does not need to be filleted. Well, I filleted the feature, so if I just want to come back in here and try to edit that, I got to go back and choose all the edges. Another great tool is the fillet expert. In the fillet expert is the ability to change, resize, and remove a fillet. So in this case here, I just want to remove that guy right there and say remove, and it takes that one particular edge, the fillet on that one particular edge off. So it's kind of a nice tool to be able to use that fillet expert to do that kind of stuff. And then finally, we'll mirror this over, and again, instead of having to choose all the features that I want to do, I'm going to choose the body. I want to mirror about that body, and my mirror plane is going to be this, and there you have it. That's that model. The great thing about this particular guy right here is that by putting all this information in that one sketch, the model behaves really well. So, you know, I'm able to make these changes, click on the dimensions, make the changes however I want, and it's going to behave quite nicely for me. So that's kind of one of the reasons, and I know where all the dimensions are. They're in that very first sketch. I'm able to quickly go over and do that type of stuff. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and take a look at what we learned there. A couple things, you know, like I mentioned earlier, a robust layout sketch is important. It really helps you control your model. Contours are your friend. If you're not using them today, save yourself the time of having to do a lot of trim work or whatever. Use the contours. They're a great tool. Mirror options, you know, make sure you understand what geometry pattern is. That can help you, or mirroring the bodies like we did there at the end. That can be very useful as well. Understand parting line draft. We don't do it a lot, but it is one of those things. I think draft is one of the basic commands of SolidWorks, the fillets, the chamfers, patterning and mirroring and stuff like that. Basic commands of SolidWorks. Just understand the tools that are available there. And then fillet features. Fillet features saves time. You don't have to go and check and select a whole bunch of edges and make sure you got them all, because that's what happens a lot in these contests is there'll be one fillet missing, one edge they didn't fillet. Had they filleted the feature, maybe they wouldn't have had so much of a problem. So that's the first model, and we're going to go through and do yet another model and try to, we're doing okay on time, try to walk you through some other things and come up with some more tips and tricks. So this is in 2007, kind of a similar model, but I show some different techniques here where we have a kind of a nice layout. Let's actually go to our share here and I'll open that guy up. See this drawing a little bit better here. So again, kind of got a layout here. If I lay out this, most of this shape here, I'm probably going to have the majority of what I need to control my model, have really good control over my model. You can see you've got symmetry in here, maybe a midplane about the center. This is going to be midplane as well. You can see how those all work out there. And then we got this keyway on the inside, or a bore and a keyway on the inside. But really just maybe a revolve here, an extrude midplane, you know, and then a cut through the back side and some fillets on it. Good to go. So let's go ahead and get started on this one. I've actually created the sketch just for time reasons here. I won't go through the the actual sketching of this one. But so here's our sketch. First thing I'm going to do is maybe start with my revolve at the bottom. So what I have is a diameter dimension on here, just a double dimension that I have using the center line. So let's go ahead and revolve this. Because I have a single center line in this sketch, it knows to choose the axis of revolution. I can come in here, I don't need that center line, I can actually use something else, but in this case here I had a center line. If there's only one center line, it automatically assumes the axis of revolution for you. Pretty straightforward right there, no problem. We got our boss. Let's turn on this sketch using the show command, and then we're going to extrude the rest of this guy out here. So let's extrude, let's grab this sketch, let's extrude this. And again, contours are your friend. So I'm going to choose this guy and this guy. We're going to extrude about the midplane, 20 millimeters. Something we're going to look at here, as you can see, I'm going to have a singularity there where only a cylinder touches a plane. And that's not good. I'm going to have to fill that back in. But if I choose this bottom region down here, I'm just going to add that material there as well. So I'll extrude that about the midplane. Pretty straightforward, but just be aware of that. Same sketch. We're going to extrude this region up here, or this contour up here. This is going to be about the midplane as well, and that's 50, something like that. Looks pretty good in my preview. We'll go ahead and accept that. On the back side here, we'll put our bore and our keyway in there. Just start with a circle that's going to be 50, and then the way I like to draw keyways in is use the center point rectangle. So I'm just going to click it onto the center there, and then drag this guy up something like this, and then I'm going to add a dimension. So it just as I did before, I'm going to click from here, hold down the Shift key. That allows me to make the maximum dimension for that one. So it's dimensioning instead of to the center, but to the extreme portion of that circle there. That's going to be 55. Oops, undo that. That's going to be 55. And that's good. We have one more dimension for the width of our slot here, of our keyway. 14. So the sketch turns black. That tells me it's fully constrained. Let's go ahead and cut this. We're going to cut. Now, we talked about contours before. There's two different types of contours. There's contour regions. So there's the region there. And then I'd have to come in here and maybe choose all these regions. Another way to do this is to choose the outside of it, and then what you get is the contour. So it just saves me a couple picks. As long as you're aware of the difference between the regions and the outside contours, it might save you a pick or two here and there. If I chose that one, it's going to cut the keyway at the bottom. I don't want to. So in this case, I'll choose the region, and this is going to be through all. And there we have, that cut that goes through there. Next, we're going to add some fillets. We'll fillet this edge. That's 50. Oops, sorry. 50. Rebuild. And I'm going to edit this guy right here, and we're going to add this back edge as well. So I got two 50s on there. And then the fillet that goes all around the outside of the part was 4. And the way I'm going to apply this fillet is I'm going to choose a face. Before we apply the fillet by filleting a feature. You can also fillet the faces instead of having to choose all those edges to do that. So I chose that one. I can see I get a nice preview of where my fillets are going to go. I need this inside edge, but I also need these two outside edges. So if I choose this face here, it'll get all those for me. Let's hide this sketch here. We don't need to see that. So I really have that part done. And again, just for grins, we can put some colors on our fillets here, just so that we can visualize, yeah, looks like I got all my fillets. So let's actually take a look at the changes that we have to make. So before we didn't go through the change on the first part that I did. We didn't go through the change portion of it. This time I'm going to try to go as fast as I can and get through the change. So what we're asking to do is rotate the keyway. Okay, now we got to think about how we're going to do that. This whole boss here shifted over. You can see that whole boss shifted. Again, not something that you planned on when you modeled. You modeled about the midplane. And this upper boss up here also shifted outward as well. So how are we going to deal with that? Let's go ahead and take a look. One of the easy ways to do that is to use some features inside of SolidWorks or inside of the extrude command, which is the from location. So this is something that I find I use it a lot. It allows me to create that one layout sketch and then have things that are extruded at different locations. They start from different locations. So in this case here, I'm going to say offset. I'm just going to use the spin boxes here. I can key in a value if I want. I'm still mid-plane, and that doesn't matter. I'm still just moving the offset from where the sketch starts out here, and you can see it makes that exactly tangent with what I want there. That looks good. Go ahead and accept that. So that moved that one feature out by 30 millimeters. So I just shifted it over, and that's exactly what I wanted there. This one's in the wrong spot, so again, we'll use the same tool. And in this case here, we have some other options. So I can extrude from, say, a surface or a plane or a vertex or whatever. I'm going to try surface or plane, and I'll choose this surface right here. Notice my preview went away. What happened? I don't know. And I don't want this to be mid-plane. I want it to be blind 50, so it's going to go out 50 but start here. So I'll hit OK. SolidWorks tells me the projection of the sketch onto the surface fails. Please check the sketch is completely within the surface. So this sketch is not completely within that surface. So that's just a limitation of that particular feature. Make sure you read that and understand what that is. Maybe you try offset, and you can offset that. In this case here, you can try vertex. In that case, that one works. So you can use that vertex. So that feature starts out on that face. Basically, it's saying, I want to start there and go 50 millimeters out. This fillet needs to change that one. I got that wrong. That should be 25. The other one should be should have been 50. There we go, 25. That's good. I typed the wrong number in. I would have got points off for that. I wouldn't have won myself. So I've got that filleted nice. Now, I guess the last thing we need to do is we need to rotate this keyway over. And so how do we do that? Well, first thing you'd probably think of is, oops, I don't want to sketch there. I want to edit that sketch. First thing you'd probably think of is that you just go into this sketch here and you'd change put an angle dimension on there. Well, this has vertical, horizontal. All these have vertical, horizontal. I got to delete all those off. That's I don't want to mess around with that. Another option is to use the Rotate Entities tool. So here I could just grab all this stuff here. Center of rotation is right there. And I want this to be 40, no, I want it minus 40, and that looks fine, you'd think, right? Everything's good, but notice that my sketch is now blue under constraint. Everything's kind of free to move around. For the contest, you just want to get things done fast. You could go with this, but in reality, in real life, you probably want to make sure you add the proper constraints and get everything squared away, for proper modeling technique. So I'm going to exit out of the sketch without saving and show you another way that I think, might be useful to you. So I'm just going to grab these three faces, and I'm going to use the Move Face tool. If you don't have that available, then you come down here to your custom, click the chevrons at the bottom, and then you'll have access to this Move Face. If you still don't really know what it is, but you kind of know what the command is, what you want to do is come up here and make sure you're searching for commands, and just type in move. In this case that's a Move Face command. It'll tell you where it is in the menus if you're interested in knowing where it is in the menus. It'll actually open that menu up for you, so you can find it. Let's do that again. Put the little double eyeglasses there. You can see it shows you exactly where it is in the menus, and then you can click it. Or what I do is I just say move, and I just click it right there, and that starts the Move Face command. So in this case, I can offset those faces, translate them, or rotate them. So grab three of these guys like that, and I'm just going to grab these this guy here and just rotate that. Say 40. We want that 40 degrees, right? 40 degrees. I get a nice preview of what that's going to look like, and there are my keyways then rotated into the right position. So I've got that one done. The other thing you want to do is you want to kind of double check your model. Make sure that everything's good. I don't have a fillet here. I got all the fillets in the right spot. Oh, actually, if I go back to our drawing here. Oops, sorry. This is the change. So if you look at our drawing, you can see, all the faces and whatever. But this fillet needs to be changed here as well. That's 25. That's 25 there as well. So we're going to need to deal with that one. A couple ways to deal with it. I'll do it two ways just to kind of show. I could go back because of feature order. I could go back to this one and just add that in there, and everything works out fine. That's perfectly valid way to do it. I'm going to undo that one, and actually show you a different way. We showed you with the fillet expert earlier how you could delete a fillet, but with the fillet expert you can also change a fillet. So I'm going to choose this fillet here. Notice it gets both of the little ends there that it needs to get, and I want that to be 25, and we'll just say resize. And it changed that fillet automatically to a different fillet for me. So I have I have that fillet, I have this fillet, and I have that fillet. So I have the separate fillet that gets put on there. And SolidWorks did that automatically for me, so I don't really need to deal with it. So it's a nice tool. Like I said, you could have done it either way, but it's a nice tool for you to be able to understand and use and know how it works, so that it might get you out of trouble somewhere down the road. So what did we learn on this model? Again, robust layout sketch. I can't emphasize that more. I think that's very important, and everyone's day-to-day productivity. Contours are your friend. Use the from options. Understand what those are and how they can benefit you in your day-to-day modeling, because, like I said, if you're using one layout sketch and everything's in that one layout sketch, it saves you from having to create offset planes and multiple sketches and things like that, so it can be very useful. Fillet expert, again, like I said, using the delete option and the resize option are both great tools. And then finally, move face. Move face, you could argue, hey, that's probably not the best modeling technique. You should probably go in there and sketch it out properly. I agree, 100% agree. But this is a contest. We're trying to get things done. I'm not necessarily grading whether or not all your sketches are constrained. I'm grading whether or not the geometry is correct. And then always double check your model. Depending on how you filleted your model, had you chose this back face here, this edge would have gotten filleted as well. So I always like to kind of double check the model, make sure that that highlighted edge, there's not an extra fillet or you're not missing a fillet, especially when you make these types of changes. So I think that's important as well. So in a short period of time here, we went through just 2 of these models, gave you some tips and techniques. I've had a lot of people request these models, and one of the benefits of being on subscription service is that you have access to all these models for the last 14 years. Some of them we have the videos where I go through and explain how you would build it. Some of them are just the models there in the drawings. You can test yourself, test your coworkers. I've had companies who have wanted to run these types of little exams or little tests for their own employees, just to, as a contest. It's kind of fun. You can find them at forum.solidworks.com. Just there's a little search button right in the middle of the page there, and just search for Model Mania, and it'll come up. In order to download them, you have to be on subscription service, but all the models and everything are there. It's kind of a great way to to test yourself, see how you stack up against your peers. And that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Amy. She's going to finish things out.
Okay, so we've got another polling question for everyone. We're wondering what your level of interest is in SolidWorks. Are you just browsing general interest? Are you beginning your investigation? Are you evaluating products? Are you ready to purchase? Or do you already own SolidWorks? So I think, Mark, thank you so much. This is a great demonstration today. I hope everyone learned some stuff. We do have another polling question and a promotion for you at the end of this webinar, so stick around. At this time, if you want to go ahead and enter any questions you have for Mark into the chat window, he will start taking some live Q&A after the next polling question. So we will go on to that right now.
Yeah, the first question is, what are the performance differences between geometry pattern and mirroring a body? Those two are about the same, but the performance difference between a geometry pattern and a feature pattern can be big, depending on the complexity of the model, depending on the complexity of the features. Because as I mentioned earlier, when you mirror or pattern those items, each of the features get solved. So if you had a big pattern with 100 items in your pattern, 10 by 10, whatever, and each of those had maybe an up to next or an up to surface, each of those features get solved. With geometry pattern, they don't. So it can help with your performance. Mirroring a body is going to be very fast, because in both cases, doing the geometry pattern and mirroring a body are both going to be fairly fast. So those are kind of on par. Another question is, how did you cut the keyway on one side again? So regions. I use contours and I use regions, and I only chose the top region of that keyway when I created that. Even though the rectangle went both sides. I only chose that contour, the region area, the contour at the top. I left the bottom off. I could have trimmed, but again, trimming is extra work. I don't like to do extra work.
Mark, I'm going to interrupt you just 1 second. So really quickly, everyone, I hope you'll join us at SolidWorks World this year. It's January 26th through 29th in San Diego. You can participate in Model Mania, like Mark's been going over right now, and there's also over 200 technical breakout sessions. SolidWorks partners, resellers, employees, users. It's over 5,000 people in one place at one time that all love CAD, and it's quite amazing. The other thing I do want to mention really quickly, and I'm sorry this is a little bit small, but we do have a great promotion going on right now where you can buy any 2 SolidWorks products and get a third one free, or get one free. You can follow this link on the screen, solidworks.com/2013_mix_and_match, mix and match. So it can be any mix and match of products. It can be SolidWorks Premium, and get another seat of SolidWorks Premium. It can be SolidWorks Electrical with SolidWorks Electrical and getting a SolidWorks Professional license. It can mix and match any number of our products. Back to you, Mark.
Awesome deal. All right, here's another question. You mentioned order features is important. Can you talk about best practices for ordering fillets with respect to each other and the rest of the tree? I was always taught draft early, fillet late, big fillets before little fillets. Kind of general rule, but you also have to consider and think about how the part is going to be machined. Can I cut that with a a ball end mill or whatever however you're machining this thing? So that's something that and you can toy around with those. Change your fillet order in the tree just by dragging one fillet before another and testing it. That's kind of a great way to do that there. There's no general rule of thumb. There's no precise right way. Like I said, I like to do big fillets before little fillets, and I like to draft before, draft early. Someone said it looks like you're using a lot of keyboard shortcuts to help you create your model faster. Are there any keyboard pointers you can give us? I don't use a lot of keyboard shortcuts personally. I do use mouse gestures. I use the shortcut key. If you're not familiar with either of those tools, because in the earlier presentation I was asking about gestures as well, look that up in the help. Those are tools that save you from having to move your mouse all over the screen, and it just keeps your focus straight away right in your model. Use your mouse gestures. They might not have come through as well because of maybe some latency in the webcast, but you might see these mouse gestures or the shortcut toolbar pop up. And those can all be customized to your liking, whatever you like. What I like isn't necessarily what everybody else is like, so I always like to let people know that those are customizable for each individual. How can I participate in Model Mania next year as a competitor? Come to SolidWorks World. In the Partner Pavilion, we have booths set up. As long as the Partner Pavilion's open, we'll be there, and you come in, you sit down, and we'll give you a drawing, and you get a chance to compete. And you win fabulous prizes from our sponsor, NVIDIA. How do you get extrude above the revolve on the second model to extrude down to the cylinder as well as out? I think when I created the first extrude, I had the revolve first, then I created the first extrude. In order for it to go all the way down, maybe I wasn't clear, I chose the same rectangle that I used to revolve as a region for the extrude. So the entire shape, I extruded it out, not just the top half. So hopefully that was clear. Again, if you go to the forums and take a look at some of these, you'll see these models are all up there. You'll see these. There'll be a video of how that one was done as well. How does move face affect imported model dimensions? When you import a model, it has no dimensions. So no dimensions come on your model because it's basically imported. It's what we call dumb geometry. But what you can do is you can click on an item and actually choose to move it. Once you do that, you now have a feature called Move Face in your tree. That is a clickable dimension that you can click on and change. So had I imported the second model that I worked on, and it was all completely done, and I needed to rotate that keyway over, I just bring in its imported model. It shows up in the tree as one feature, imported. I just start doing my move face items on that as well, and I'm able to then click on it and control that dimension. If you have SolidWorks Professional, then you can double-click on certain items, and basically what's happening behind the scenes, like fillets and some bosses, what's happening behind the scenes is we're invoking FeatureWorks to actually turn what you selected into a feature and allowing you to tug and move on it. So it actually kind of does this kind of work behind the scenes for you. Try some simple models and see how it works, but it's actually invoking FeatureWorks behind the scenes to do that. How did you get the extrude? I think we got all the questions. I know Matt's on the phone. We got any other good ones that I can answer, Matt? My favorite mouse gestures. Well, I'll show you what my mouse gestures are. I'll go back to a share here. And I can show you what mouse gestures are and go through real quick. So this is in part mode. You have separate mouse gestures for part, sketch, drawing, and for assemblies. So those are all customizable. In order to get your mouse gestures, just right-click, and I have chosen to do 8 mouse gestures. And sometimes, frankly, these are set up for what I'm working on. So, if I'm doing a demo for somebody and I'm using the whole wizard, then I want to have whole wizard readily available. Fillets and certain things like that, I always want to have readily available. If I go into a sketch, I have different mouse gestures here, and these are ones that I use all the time. I'm always using circle, line, dimension, rectangles, center line, slots, trim, those things. I just want to have access to those all the time. To get to these, you go to the Customize, and you have the ability to customize your mouse gestures. Do you want to enable mouse gestures 4 or 8? I like 8. And then come in here and choose whichever gesture you want. So if I wanted, in an assembly environment, I wanted to have my mouse moving to the left for close, then I could, use that one there. So that's how I do the mouse keys. I'm sorry, the mouse gestures. Let's go back. Any good more questions?
Mark, why don't you take one more, because we are a little bit over time, and thank you everyone for joining us. We do appreciate it. So Mark, one last question, and then we hope that everyone will join us at SolidWorks World and try your own hand at Model Mania.
Yeah, one of the questions is mirroring is quick for creating geometry. I find it harder to edit down the road because you right-click on a mirrored portion to edit. Certainly, but you got to remember that mirroring saves you a bunch of time. I don't have to model everything to the other side. So you can also use the mirroring tools inside a Sketcher and have your sketch mirrored to the other side, and that might be more useful for you because that way you're not clicking on the other side, and when you click on the other side, it basically highlights the mirror feature in a tree instead of the original geometry. So maybe play around with that, using the mirroring tools inside of a Sketcher. Take a look at the dynamic mirroring tool as well. So it mirrors while you sketch. So you you choose a center line, turn on dynamic mirroring. Everything you sketch gets mirrored while you sketch. So it can save you some time there as well. Is that it then, Amy?
I think that is. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks Mark for a great presentation. We have recorded this webinar and we'll be sending out a link later this afternoon so that everyone can have that for your records and play back at your convenience.
Thank you.